I'm now joined by Nationwide's chief economist, Robert Gardner. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us. So, a bit of a fall in house prices for January. What is the significance of this? What does it mean for the outlook for the housing market in the year ahead?
Well, the UK housing market certainly does seem to have entered 2011 with a whimper rather than a bang, but I don't think it will have come as much of a surprise to anybody, really, given that the wider economy really did hit something of a soft patch as we got to the back end of 2010. If you look at how consumers are feeling, clearly consumers are still feeling very downbeat. It's not really surprising, given how sluggish the economy has been, given that the economic outlook is so uncertain. It's not surprising that so many buyers really are remaining on the sidelines. So this picture of a sluggish UK housing market really continuing the trend that we saw at the back end of 2010, and probably likely to see that trend continuing through much of 2011 as well.
So you see house prices falling even further. We will continue to see this sluggishness, this weakness in the housing market?
I think when you look at the key factors that are weighing on households at the moment, there really are quite a few strong headwinds out there at the moment. You've got the prospect of fiscal tightening, the fact that the labour market is still fairly sluggish, employment growth has been fairly weak, wage growth hasn't been running fast enough to keep up with inflation, confidence is fairly subdued. All these factors mean that demand in the housing market really is fairly weak, and that's going to be slow to turn around, given that the economic recovery is likely to remain fairly weak through 2011. Set against that, though, we don't see a flood of new supply coming onto the housing market. So given that we have weak demand, but also that supply isn't coming on stream very quickly, that reinforces this idea that what we'll see is actually the housing market really treading water through 2011.
Robert, if I can ask you about the broader economy right now, you said that the recovery may falter during the course of the year. Does that mean that the government should consider perhaps delaying austerity measures, given that consumers are already feeling a pinch?
I think what most people expect to see, and certainly what we expect to see, is the economy will gradually maintain or will gradually pick up the pace as we go through 2011, but we're really looking for the external sector, for trade, to do most of the heavy lifting when it comes to growth. It should be able to achieve that, given that the world economy is still growing fairly strongly, given that sterling is more competitive. We're looking for trade to do the heavy lifting rather than domestic demand.
But
because
problems in the
especially if you look at the
Eurozone
household
impact on
sector,
trade?
There's certainly a risk that the periphery of Europe will continue to see fairly sluggish growth, but thankfully at the core, if you look at Germany, we see strength there, obviously a key export market for the UK, and we're hopeful that that strength in Germany will help to pull the rest of the Eurozone forward, and that will help UK exporters, especially given that sterling remains fairly competitive.
In Swindon, Robert Gardner, thank you very much indeed, Chief Economist of Nationwide Building Society.